And welcome back, once again adventurers, to Let's Play Steins. In the last episode, Daru was busy working on fixing Suzuha's time machine as Mayuri looked on with her usual brimming curiosity. Meanwhile, Suzuha was conversing with Rintaro on the top nearby, on the top of the radio building, overlooking the city of Akihabara, and there was a very nice sunset on the horizon. And Rintaro mentions how reliable Daru really is when it's important. He may be a over-the-top otaku even at the best of times, but Daru is definitely pretty reliable. That he is, unfortunately. Probably best not to mention that to him. Fortunately, he's working in the middle of the time machine, so he shouldn't overhear us. Indeed. Probably a far better impression than Kurusu has of him, to be sure. Well, given the fact that once the machine is fixed, hopefully before the inevitable demise of Mayuri, you'll be travelling back in time, back to the year 1975, to get the IBN we desperately need in our attempt to jump from worldline alpha to worldline beta. So now is probably the best time to say whatever's on your mind. Well, thank you very much. Well, considering the fact that most of the people that you knew in 2036 haven't even been born yet, yourself included, by the way, and the fact that everyone here is mostly been killed in action by SERN's elite guard, basically. I suppose it would have been hard to adjust from one time period to another, even if it was the future. I know they played this up for comedic reasons with Marty McFly in the first two Back to the Futures, where he literally almost walks into a passerby in the era that he's currently in, which I always found hilarious. Indeed, because you're in the company of the members of the Future Gadget Laboratory, headed up by Ho in Kiyoma. And it seems that Suzuha has finally realized the importance of the point that Rintaro tried to hammer home when she initially was planning on basically nixing the idea of finding her father in the present. Sorry about that. Just had to sneeze. Well, now we know. Suzuha's tone is wistful. Why? I try to speak, but she continues before I can.
の時代に来ることができて、君たちと同じ時間を過ごせて、私本当に楽しかった。
Of course, I seriously doubt that you did any actual work in the entire time in which you've been working part-time at the Brawn Tube workshop. I think Tanuji can probably confirm that if we asked him.
っていうか、君たちみんな揃いも揃って我が強くて、癖があっていろいろと濃すぎて、最初はなんだこいつらなんて思ってたけどさ。
Indeed. In fact, I believe most people take a while to actually get used to the personality of Ho and Kiyoma.
いつの間にか君たちといる時間が楽しくなってたよ。2036年はさ、とっても平和で喧嘩すら起きないんだ。知ってた？
I believe the piece that you're talking about, Suzuha, is a very different kind of piece to the current era of 2010, in the fact that the piece that you are referring to is a controlled, manufactured piece that is actually anything but peaceful.
知るわけがない。俺は2036年まで生きていないからな。
And unfortunately, SERN managed to deal with Rintaro Okabe, who was a very infamous terrorist on CERN's most wanted list.
そっか。ごめん。
Indeed, given the fact that you were the one who gave us the information, that particular detail in the first place.
とにかくさ、喧嘩すら起きない。およそ争いって名のつくものは、ミクロなものからマクロなものまで全部消えちゃった。
Well, I wouldn't say that war has entirely disappeared from your worldline of 2036, given the fact that there is actually a resistance still opposed to CERN's dystopian rule. But even though this outcome is a noble one, it is rather tainted by the fact that, again, CERN's controlling of society down to the most basic elements is, definitely leaves a lot to be desired.
その代わり、みんな死んだ魚みたいな目をしてた。
And as a result, apparently most of the populace have basically been brainwashed or subjugated by CERN.
誰も覇気がなくて、歩く足はズリズリってすり足で。
A very bleak future if ever there was one.
笑いはするけど、怒ったり悲しんだりはしなくて。 個性なんて誰も持ってなかった。みんなロボットみたいだった。
So CERN basically have a iron grip on the space-time continuum by that point. Supposedly, though.
君が私にすごく怒ったでしょ。
Indeed, Rintaro did. Which was a while ago now, I think.
すごくびっくりして、すごくショックだったんだけど、同時にすごく嬉しくなったんだよ。
Probably because Rintaro was probably the first person who actually showed any real, genuine emotion.
変なやつだな。
Although that is also a fair comment given your behavior during the first few encounters.
確かに。
Suzuha looks at the time machine. Daru and Mayuri are standing next to it, talking cheerfully about something or another.
君のラボに出入りしてるみんなは生き生きしてて、すごく椎名まゆりも橋田至も牧瀬クリスも、それに君も。
Appears that Suzuha was appreciative of the members of the Future Gadget Lab, and it seems that she's finally starting to let go of her enmity towards Kurisu, who, if you remember, was known as the mother of the time machine in 2036, but this was ultimately SERN's propaganda to tarnish her good name by making her out as a collaborator, even though they coerced her in the first place and inevitably disposed of her once her work was completed. And as for Rintaro, there's nothing enviable about me. I'm worthless. I can't even save Maori. Well, we do have a sliver of hope. When Suzuha goes back to 1975, we should be able to access CERN's echelon database and jump between world lines.
私もみんなみたいになりたいって思ったよ。
I'd be careful about that statement if I were you. Anyone could take it to mean who do you want to be more like, Rintaro Okabe or Hoin Kyoma? You really have to be specific about these things.
俺からすればお前こそすごいと思うぞ。
That is particularly true considering the fact that she took down 4 or 5 of CERN's rounder mercenaries by herself, which is pretty impressive, although that technically hasn't happened yet, since we're still on the 12th and Moeka doesn't show up until the 13th.
こうして頑張れてるのも君たちと会えたおかげ。ほんのちょっとでもラボ面の一員になれてよかった。
Well, and now we suppose we have some idea of why Suzuha is sentimental, because once she leaves, there is actually going to be no going back. So she's appreciating the time she has left. She smiles then, a soft, sad smile that tears at my heart. What does it mean?
ほんのちょっとの間でも君たちと一緒にいられてよかった。
スズハ？
岡部倫太郎、きっと未来を変えてね。今みたいな自由な世界に変えて。
Well, we can't make any promises, but I can tell you that we shall do the best we can, and that is all we can hope for at this point.
おい、どうしたんだ。なぜそんなに感傷的なのだ。
Does she not want to go to 1975? But I mean, she's got a time machine, so can't she just come back afterwards? Even as I think it, I realize how wrong I am. Of course. When Suzuha completes her mission and brings us the IBN 5100, the world line will change. The future will be rewritten, and the 2036 she knows will cease to exist. To hear her describe it, the future is an awful place, but even so, it was her home. She has friends there, I'm sure. Comrades in arms and memories of her father barrel tied her. All of that will be lost to her forever. No wonder she's getting all sentimental.
タイムマシンが治ったらまた盛大に宴会を開こう。
And yeah, so this will probably be the hopefully a celebration that's worth having, and one that won't be interrupted by any complications. yet she's still smiling that sorrowful smile. Indeed, but we must press on. The only way is forward. And it's night time. Afterwards, I hit the streets again in search of the pin. So we have nothing else to do. But the day ended without a single lead, so I reluctantly returned to the lab and tried searching the internet. A couple of hours of later and still no luck. So far, I've accomplished absolutely nothing. My frustration is mounting. Well, hopefully Daru can actually try and finish the time machine as quickly as possible. And if push comes to shove, we'll have to time leap again back to the 11th. Which will set us back again. I can time leap again, but will that really help us find Suzuha's father? An unfamiliar number. Who could possibly be calling us at this hour? Who is it?
俺だ。
Hi, Mr. Okabe Rintaro.
And to you, the street vendor. The voice is heavily accented. I can barely make it out. Who is this guy? And Rintaro is completely forgotten. We only spoke to him, I don't know, this afternoon?
捨てるんか。
Even though we know that the SERNs around us are patrolling the streets of Akihabara, they're not going to move tonight, given the events that have unfolded thus far, so... And I definitely don't think he's from SERN. I jumped to my feet and scanned the room, then run to the window and check the road below. Probably a good idea, since they were around us everywhere when they stormed the Future Gadget Laboratory in order to prevent Rintaro, Kurisu, and Daru from escaping the city of Akihabara altogether. Fortunately, there are no suspicious figures in sight. Kurisu comes out of the development room and gives me a questioning look, but I wave her back inside, because she still has to complete the time leap machine, so technically we can't actually leap back in time until the 13th, which is rather unfortunate.
SERN とは何です?
You don't need to know who SERN is, and it's probably better that you don't. I gulp and carefully choose my words.
名乗ってもらおう。
おたく、ワンモアアフタヌーンうちのファクトリーに問い合わせに来て、テレフォンナンバーを教えていったですよ。
Interesting mix of English and Japanese, not necessarily English, but probably a close approximation. Although I don't think that your vendor stall could ever be considered a factory. But we did give you our contact details, so no wonder you phoned us. And now Rintaro starts to put two and two together. I've heard this broken Japanese before. The strange Japanese filters through my brain, connecting synapses. That's right. It's that foreign street vendor I met this afternoon in Akihabara.
特定した。Nice to meet you.
Well, that was a far better delivery than the rather shameful display that occurred when you first introduced yourself as a mad scientist.
どういたしまして。私自主制作してます。Yesterday night, ゲストが come here の思い出し。
Apparently someone did show up at his shop last night.
そのゲストがメイクプリンスピンバッジがユウが持ってきたやつとセイムだったのよ。
And apparently said person wanted to make the exact same pin that we currently have in our possession, so could possibly be a long stretch, but it's safe to assume that the person in question could actually be Suzuha's mysterious father, which is probably the closest lead that we've had. I don't quite get what he's saying, but he seems really excited about it.
今すぐそっちに行く。
It's a very good idea. It's a vague lead, but any lead is helpful at this point. I go to the same spot as before. Although his stand is already closed, the Westerner is waiting for me.
Oh, Okabe! Hello!
Now that was truly some cringe-worthy English right there.
そのゲストとやらはどこへ行った？
And Rintaro is straight to business.
Client come here なのは yesterday なことよろしい。
I believe you mentioned that over the phone just 5 minutes ago. The blue-eyed white man shrugs his shoulders. So it was yesterday. He contacted me because he remembered, obviously.
そいつの連絡先は？住所氏名は？
We're pretty much SOL if he didn't give any of these details.
ドクです。ゲストはシミュレーションだけ。プライベートインフォメーションは nothing.
Poison guessed just for simulation, private information have nothing? This statement is completely nonsensical. And Rintaro is having a hard time wrapping his brain around the rather interesting grammar there. So last night someone came by wanting to make a metal pin with the same design as Suzuha's that we can obviously understand that much. But he died of poisoning? I think again, terrible grammar, basically. The guess was just a simulation, so there's no private information? I'm not following. Neither am I.
ジャパニーズやっとプライベートインフォメーションの重要さについてスタートらしい。過敏真剣になったよね。
Japanese very studious and awarding private information become very nervous and serious. Well, at least we know he's Japanese, but other than that, again, still very vague and confusing. And that doesn't help.
If ゲストがネームはテレフォンナンバー残っていったかよ。ノリーク、それがビジネス。
If guest had gave name or telephone number, however, no leak. That is, I take it back. This is English at its finest. This is like third tier level English. That is But basically, what I can surmise is that the vendor in question would not have given away Suzuha's father's detailed basically confidentiality is what he's saying. And but unfortunately the way he articulated his sentences, he makes Yoda from Star Wars seem like Shakespeare in comparison. Fatigue suddenly weighs down upon my shoulders. I don't understand a word he's saying anymore. My head is full of question marks. In hindsight, I should have brought Kurisu to speak English for me. Considering the fact that we actually need her to work on the time loop machine, we didn't really have that option. I guess I'll just have to wing it. Pretty much.
そいつはどういうやつだった？男か？女か？
Well, any physical description would actually be very useful. Any sort of distinguishing things that we can actually
Well,
pinpoint.
so young or so middle. Japanese は顔ヤングね。ルックだけじゃ no understand.
So, basically what he's saying is that most Japanese people actually look fairly alike. And there has to be something. Clothing, something. Some sort of distinguishing feature that we can actually track.
特徴やはり柔道 or pro wrestler?
Judo fighter or pro wrestler? Well, probably not entirely out of the question given Suzuha's obvious training. But,
なんだ？柔道？プロレスラー？ それがどうしたんだ？
Yeah, that is a very good question. What do you mean by that?
Yes!
I see what you did there. Is he a judo fighter or a pro wrestler? That is a good question. The answer is yes, obviously. It's kind of like that that brief running gag from Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which Frieza is planning to blow up Vegeta. Wait a minute. My son, the planet, or me? Yes. Freaking smartass. That was not a yes or no question. What the hell do you mean? Definitely a smartass.
Balloon だよ!
And now he's saying balloon. It's also very unhelpful.
柔道、プロレス。
I don't think any of these things have anything in common whatsoever.
Good!
No, that is not good at all. That is the complete antithesis of good. Are you trying to confuse me? I think we are very confused at this point. I want to ask more questions, but the foreigner suddenly sees a policeman walking by and runs off. I consider chasing him, but decide against it to avoid police attention, especially after what happened last time with Mayuri's helpful leaflets. We don't want a repeat of that monstrosity ever again. I give up. The search has hit a dead end and we barely had any time left to find Barrel Tighter. I can time leap again starting at 2 PM tomorrow, once Kurisu completes the machine. Looks like all I can do is wait until she's done working and then leap to the time this suspicious character makes his appearance at the stand. Suppose that's really our only option at this point. Kurisu carefully connects the two cords she's holding, and with that, I believe that signifies that the time leap machine is now complete and ready for use. But that will be in the next episode, so when we return, adventurers, leap back in time, possibly to intercept the man who may or may not be Suzuha's father here in the present of 2010. The only way to find out is to time leap, unfortunately. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.